What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video from Pink Tourmaline. This is a video that was sent from one of the members on this channel, which I'm going to get to in a minute. And I'm breaking it down and analyzing it because there's so many beautiful golden nuggets that go to this idea of the paradigm, the world, the system, the matrix, the trap, the trick, whatever you want to call it, that we may be in. And what's especially interesting is the source. So obviously we've talked about listening to data from remote viewers. We've talked about data from astral travelers, from other resources, other types of people, pre-birth memories, even trying to piece together information from NDEs. But now where we're gathering information, this is not the only time I've looked at this type of data, but now where we're gathering information from in regards to the nature of the matrix is from past life regressions. And that's what's being discussed in this interview. This is an interview, Chris Mathieu, if I'm pronouncing that right, interviews Mike Sygula on the Soul Trap. And we're going to be going through this interview, and there's lots and lots of very interesting pieces of information that corroborate the theory that is obviously the most prominently discussed on this channel, which I believe is the front runner for the correct narrative and interpretation of what's happening on this planet and in this whole system right now. And again, it's fascinating because this is information that's gathered across multiple accounts. It's not one individual's account. It's not one individual going out there and he's seeing all these things and interpreting the data a particular way. And I think that that makes this data feel more reliable because it's gathered through multiple regressions, multiple people, and multiple individuals. In fact, this is why I'm really excited to interview Tina and Karen, because I think they have gathered their data much the same way. It's not through their own eyes and through their own experiences a multitude of times. It's across working with multiple patients. I believe this anyways. I haven't spoken to them yet. I haven't even worked with them yet, but this is what I anticipate is going to be so interesting when I get to chat with them. So we're seeing a lot of data points being corroborated across a spectrum of people, of individuals, of different individuals. So to me, that fortifies the data. Now, quick shout out. We got two shout outs. First shout out is to Sergeant Schultz, the YouTube channel that reposted this interview. We're going to have a link in the description where you can see the original video from Sergeant Schultz, because what I've done is I've extracted a bunch of I think, very pertinent, very relevant clips. But if you want to see the entire interview in its totality, you can follow the link in the description. Another shout out is to Krishna Sanjeev 3112, a member of this channel, and he's the one that emailed me this video. This video, I think, dropped 9 days ago. So thank you so much. This is the second time Krishna has brought me an unbelievable video to review and discuss and extract information about. That is, again, I think, so important for all of us. And as I said this many, many times on the channel, and I still, it's not even that I believe it to be true. It is true. This is the most important topic to discuss right now on the planet. Sorry, it is the nature of reality, is the nature of what is this whole thing all about? What is the purpose of life? What are we in? As opposed to thinking about micro issues that happen to be going on this planet. No, what is the system at large, and what should our objective really be? Let's try to understand it. Most important question. And so, Krishna, thank you for sending me more very pertinent information to answering this massively, supremely important question. All right. Without further ado, let's get into the mix. So first of all, who is Mike Sygula? I wanted to give a little bit of background information about him before we dive into the interview. So he's a researcher, podcast host, spiritual development coach, and a founder of the independent media platform Truth Theory. And you guys can check this out. I actually looked up the website. It's pretty cool. But I didn't go through it in detail. I went to the About section and his story. His work explores consciousness, near-death experiences, out-of-body phenomenon, reincarnation, and the controversial soul trap theory, the belief that deceptive entities, this is from ChatGPT, the belief that deceptive entities of systems may manipulate souls into returning to Earth after death. Through interviews and personal commentary, Sygula encourages people to question conventional interpretations of the afterlife and develop greater spiritual awareness and sovereignty. One thing that I'm curious about, because he references a lot of regression and regression work in this interview, is does he do regression work himself? I do not believe so from what I've looked up in terms of his background. He does do entity clearing, spiritual clearing. He does do coaching and things like that. but I couldn't find any reference of him doing regression work, but he references a lot of regression work. And I believe the reason why he's referencing this stuff is because he is relying on research and regressions from Calogero Grifasi, who he mentions in this interview later on. So who is Calogero Grifasi? He is an Italian hypnotist. I want to have this guy on the show. I want to have both these guys on the show for an interview. And the founder of the Grifasi method, a form of esoteric regressive hypnosis he developed in 2012. His sessions explore all alleged past lives. Again, they're saying alleged because this is from ChatGPT. Energetic attachments, non-physical entities, reincarnation, and the possibility that souls are manipulated into repeatedly returning to Earth. Grifasi is especially known for challenging figures presented during regressions as spirit guides or beings of light, treating the information revealed in these sessions as investigative material rather than automatically accepting it as benevolent or truthful. So I believe, if I'm interpreting Sygula correctly, he's actually referencing a lot of the work and a lot of the data presented from the sessions reported by Calogero Grifasi. So just to learn a little bit more, I tried to figure out exactly somewhat more about the method from Calogero Grifasi by going to his website. I couldn't uncover much of the specifics, but just so you have a little bit of an idea of past life regressive hypnosis in his own words from his website. Again, this doesn't tell you a lot, but I thought I'd include this as well before we get into the mix. Regressive hypnosis is an adventure. It's an action movie that captivates you for a couple of hours where you are the protagonist. It's your adventure. And like in every adventure, every fairy tale, every story, you must reach your goal by challenging adversity, learning to survive along the way, and facing your fears. You have to summon your courage and fight the monsters, the insects, the snakes, the elves, the gnomes, and the ghosts. But you also travel through enchanted places, wonderful locations full of light, color, and scents. You meet many characters, some already known, others yet to be discovered. It's a journey through time between dimensional portals and telepathic communications. It's a dive into the depths, into your emotions, in search of the origins of your whys. It is a journey within yourself. It doesn't matter whether it's outside or inside of your mind. It's your dream, and you are right in the middle of it. So this is the way that he paints it on his website. So he doesn't talk specifically about past lives or whether you're talking about the astral plane or whatnot. Maybe this is for marketing purposes. Maybe he has a reason why he doesn't go into more detail here, or maybe the more detail is somewhere else on the website that I missed. I don't know. But again, I have heard of Calogero Grifasi's name before. He's on my list of people to research more in depth. But yes, my understanding is that's what he does. That's his specialty. And he works with clients and he goes through this type of regressive hypnosis. And this is the data from which I believe Sygula is speaking. Last thing I'll say one more time before we get into the mix. I do think, again, I'll say it again, this data is, I think it can be very powerful because it's not through the lens of one person. Like we have other people that have multiple OBEs or multiple astral projections, however you want to call it, and they're going in and they're experiencing things. We have Elizabeth April doing this all the time. But the issue with that is we're seeing one person share information that they're extracting, but they have their own biases. They have things that they're expecting. And that's one of the issues that is widely discussed in remote viewing, is that, and the same would apply, I believe, to out of bodies or astral projections, is that when you have particular biases or you're expecting to see certain things certain ways, you will see certain things certain ways, or potentially who knows how overlays are being presented to you from different entities to match your expectations. And so you can have these biases overlay all of the data you're reporting. However, when you're now interpreting a multitude of these types of experiences from all sorts of different people, yes, they're going to have individual biases. But again, if you're looking at the overlaps of what they're reporting, I think you're going to have a much more objective viewpoint of all the data and really be able to piece together the truth. So that's why I think on its face, this seems to be much more reliable and a very interesting method for extracting information on all of this stuff. Point being, this is very exciting information. Can't wait to get into it. So look at all of this data and all of this information, what you're going to hear from the interview through this lens, which I think makes it very powerful. Okay. Without further ado, let's get into the mix. So first, he talks about something that we are quite well aware of, this idea of the life reviews being basically a false situation. Okay, you're going through a life review, you're being judged, you're being said that you then, after you do the life review, you have to now go into this difficult life to remedy that thing that you did here, blah, blah, blah. So he talks about it right here. Check this out.
for the last couple of years, one of the things I've been focusing on is I'm doing these regressive hypnosis sessions. There are two types. So one is where you can examine a topic, is like researching some topics. So, for example, different people who do hypnosis or, intuitives try to gain some information about particular topic. And then another one is working with clients. So this is a little bit different because you work with someone and you gain their permission and you can tap into their lives and what they've been doing and things like that. And we normally work in twos. So I work with the psychic. So the psychic is like my eyes in astral realm, and I'm the one guiding him to tap into some situation or do some remote viewing or something like that. Mm-hmm. And what we discovered through these techniques, and it's not only me, but several other people who have been doing similar things, we started noticing very often, this whole situation with live review, with
Let me pause real quick. I totally stand corrected. I don't know how I forgot this whole portion that I included myself. But yeah, no, he says right here, he's not just looking at the work of Calogero Grifasi, which he does reference later, but he's obviously conducting these sessions himself with the help of a psychic and other people. So this is not just he's not just looking at data from somebody else and coming to these conclusions. He's doing work. He's digging for the information with clients, with the permission of clients. So this bolsters everything even more. He's referencing the work of Calogero, and he's also doing it himself. So just wanted to clarify. But anyways, now we get back to what he was saying. Now he's talking about the life reviews, and he's going to give you his take on these life reviews.
The tunnel of light and things like that. And when we try to gain accurate information and really see who are these helpers or what's going on there. We just discovered that it is always like reptilians or insectoids or grays. And very often, what happens is that they can camouflage themselves to appear as whatever, if you believe in this religion, they can show in this form. If you, sometimes it's just voice of God, sometimes it's just like some counsel. But this is my conclusion now, that they can kind of use some technologies to change form. And even when you feel like radiating love or the light is amazing, this is harvested from people. So, for example, when you go to the church and people pray and do these types of things, this is very often harvested for this need as one of the needs. Sometimes it's for other things as well. So, like, so let's say someone goes to church and I don't know, they do some ritual or something, or they pray to some God, whatever, or some Jesus or whatever archangel, and suddenly they felt some, love or presence for a moment, or had some uplifting moment. And this is very often the same system. So, the energy that is being harvested is being used to get people persuaded that this works and, in this setting, but it's also the same with what's happening after reincarnations. And
okay, so when they talk, what he's talking about right there, if you didn't catch it, he I believe is referring to the love bombing. When you feel those emotions, they're using those emotions gathered at different points in your life, perhaps like as he mentioned, and it's reflected back at you. And this corroborates, I think, exactly. And I'm trying to remember who said it. I want to say it was Tina and Karen, but I can't remember for sure. That the love bombing that you're getting is actually your own self-love or these own emotions reflected back at you. It's like it's you. That's it. It's coming from you ultimately. And so he's kind of saying that in a different way. They're maybe using this technology to mimic then whatever is being projected out from yourself at another point in life. So that's very, very interesting. But yes, the life reviews, the tunnel, the love bombing, all of these are falsities. All of these are things that are projected upon you to make you more pliable and susceptible to manipulation. Okay, next. He says that this whole thing is all about getting us to agree to a difficult soul plan, a difficult life, right? And ultimately, the more difficult, probably the better for the system and for the matrix in terms of, imagine absorbing loosh and things like that. Let's listen.
The whole thing is about trying to convince the soul to come back to Earth and experience maybe some difficult life and agree to certain soul plan that is manipulated. And then, the beings normally get access to the soul level because there is some agreement there. So it's a kind of like a partially, your own choice, but it's manipulated as well.
Again, this why is this partially your own? Why is it manipulated? Why do they need you to agree? And he's going to talk about this multiple times later on in this video. It's the law of free will, which we've talked about endlessly, and this is a common theme throughout. And this should be an empowering message. I say this over and over. They need our consent. They need us to sign a contract in some way, implicitly or explicitly, which should be a majorly empowering message for everybody. All the folks that keep wanting to say that we're just negative minded and we're focusing on a scary narrative. Well, the rebuttal obviously is, hey, if the truth is scary, unfortunately, you got to deal with it, number one. But number two, there is a very, very big empowering message here, and we can't see it if we don't accept reality, if we don't accept what truly might be going on. Once we accept it, then we can embrace this really, really positive underlying message, which is ultimately this thing is all up to us. One thing that comes to mind as well is, I think when I was talking to Darius J. Wright, one of the things he mentioned is, man, if you don't trust anything, if you don't trust any entities, everybody's going to come to you and try and help you, and you're just going to be stuck there, and you're going to sit there and you're going to not be able to listen to anybody, and you're just going to be totally frozen. Where are you going to go? And my response to that, definitely now, as I've been thinking about it, it's been a couple months since I spoke to him. Definitely now, I've had a really good time to think about this, and I've talked to other people that have talked about this as well. Number one, if these are really, truly good, positive entities, and you're rejecting their help essentially because out of concern that they may be trying to manipulate you, why would they then just punish you accordingly and say, hey, listen, he's not listening to anybody, you're just going to be stuck here in limbo forever and ever? I highly doubt that would be the case. If rejecting out of the fear of self-preservation, it's not like you're going out and trying to attack or do different things, but if you're doing that out of a fear, I don't, and a real logical concern, I don't see how that would cut you off from any real positive entities coming in and helping you. That just doesn't make sense to me. Plus, on top of that, maybe you don't need any entity help. Again, this is one of the things I think that I mentioned too. I did mention this on the interview, but what about trusting in yourself and believing in your own sovereignty and authority and infinite power? It's another thing to think about. Anyways, let's move it along. Trickery and free will. Again, this comes back to the power of free will and why there must be so much trickery. And we see the trickery all over the place. This world is a big trick. There is constant just lies, manipulations, confusion, every which way, everywhere. And I think this showcases the fact that free will is quite important, and we are quite powerful.
Wow. And this is very often, when we check, because you can check what's going on in these sessions on the exact level, because everything that happens, that's why they are not forcing you. You agree yourself, right? Because there is a free will aspect. So, it's not like someone gonna tell you, oh, you go back and you have difficult life and we're gonna feed off your loose energy or emotions or whatever. You're gonna do it yourself. So it's like a little bit like, you would have a salesman that knocks to your door and sells you some crappy phone or something, and you are the one that bought it. You didn't realize that he was cheating on you or trying to rip you off. So it's a little bit like this.
There it is, right? That's what we've talked about over and over. It's some way of masking the truth or manipulating the truth or the reality of the situation, presenting it in a way where you believe it, and then you sign on the dotted line, you agree, and you go back. And ultimately, I do think that the system breaks down, or it doesn't really work if the free will, if you're actually just forcefully being shoved in without any sort of agreement. I know that there's some accounts of people saying when they have NDEs, they come out and they're sort of forced back in, even though they try to stay. But I think that can be explained because you, at one point prior to going into the life, you agreed to continue and live out that life. So that wouldn't be a violation of free will. That would be like, okay, well, this is a temporary pause, but your life hasn't been completed. You agreed to this whole life. You can try and refuse. I think they'd rather you agree and willingly go back. But if you don't, they are not in violation of free will by forcing you back into your body. That would be at least my understanding or explanation in that case. Okay, next, he talks about specifically the tunnel of light, the false light. Don't go into the light. Here we go.
I mean, so for example, one thing that comes from these sessions is that the tunnel of light, which is not something that appears for everyone apparently, but you heard these stories about people going through this tunnel. At the end, there is light. The light is like overwhelming love, whatever. It feels really nice, and people are drawn to it. And this is supposedly, a fake kind of construct that is designed to, because like the soul leaving the body is very often still not 100% aware. It's like the memories might take a while before they're going to start coming back and things like that. So it's a good moment to capture the soul, let's say, try to take advantage of the state. So that's one of the things that, it seems to be just a kind of like a trap.
Okay, there it is. Tunnel of light, something that he's gotten from all these regression sessions. This is something that I think we've thought for quite some time at this point. And I do think it's interesting too, as well, that he's saying the level of confusion, you still don't have your memories back. You're very susceptible to manipulation at that moment because you're kind of confused at the moment of passing. And I feel like this is corroborated by many stories. Even if we look at the paramedic that I discussed in yesterday's video, where she had seen lots of people come out and immediately greeted by figures and then taken away willingly, by the way, not forcefully, willingly. But it seems that, yes, maybe that moment of death, you are especially susceptible, so they try to get you right away before you can kind of come to your senses or figure out things, or maybe have second thoughts about going with these entities. You come out, you're confused, you get love bombed, you feel these amazing emotions that makes you pliable, that makes you wanting to trust these entities, and then boom, you're whisked away, gotten back into the cycle, and before you know it, you've signed some sort of contract and you're back in the reincarnation cycle. Next, this is pretty interesting. So this part ties together a lot of the ET concepts that have been covered in the ET races that have been discussed, aka reptilians, greys, even the insectoids. And what he's saying here is that they are in cahoots, or they work with the astrals. And let me just explain for a second. I've been thinking a lot about this and trying to make sense of it. And I think it's just like we see a hierarchical structure on this planet with whatever you want to call it, the cabal, and then these other complicit officers in various governments and various organizations, and kind of trickles down. And not everybody has full information or really knows what's going on usually, right? It's all compartmentalized. Why wouldn't this whole structure expand out beyond the planet as we start to learn more and more about the nature of reality? I think it would make sense. So the way I think he's describing it, or it could be described, is we have the astrals on top, then we have these other entities on the bottom, or not, they're in the next level, maybe the reptilians, maybe the insectoids, maybe whatever other variations, the grays that we might see. And these are helping to manage the system at a higher level. They're privy to the fact that the souls are being recycled through the system. They're harvesting loosh from us, et cetera, et cetera. To whatever extent they need to let them know, they let them know. Then you have the levels beneath that. Then maybe you have the power structures on this planet that are also helping to organize the system on the planet. Maybe meaning keep religions going, keep people confused, keep people infighting with each other, just so that they're so confused they can't see the big picture. Now, do they know the complete scope of the entire reincarnation trap? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Again, it could be a compartmentalization thing, and it's on a need-to-know basis. But my point is, it could all be part, everything kind of in culture that we've seen about extraterrestrials, the astral, etc., could all be one system working together. And I think that's kind of what is happening. This also, it has been corroborated by, there's been other accounts of people seeing these grays or these other alien entities being involved in some of the soul extraction or soul capturing at the moment of death. So I'm just saying, these are things I'm not like citing a specific video or a specific person. These are just things that I've come across in all my research. I'm sure you can go out and find it there. But anyways, it lines up, it adds up. Now let's listen to Mike Sygula in his own words.
So it's like, astral beings work with, reptilians who can incarnate, or with insectoid types, or with grays. Grays very often work as more kind of helpers, like these kind of robotic, a little bit like biorobots, let's say, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's kind of like different factions, but they often have the same goals.
That's it, right? So they're all working for this same system. And you might say, then why? This is a hypothesis. I don't know for sure. And maybe this information is actually out there where somebody can verify this. But my assumption is it's you, depending on where you are in the system, you're probably given certain things. You're probably able to have a higher level of power, a better existence while incarnated. Who knows what the trade-offs are for the cabal on this planet, for these other races or entities? Is it technology that they're given access to? Is it longer lifespans, perfect health, whatever would amount to some sort of physical immortality? I don't exactly know, but I imagine that would make sense to me, that there's, based on whatever level you're helping with, or whatever level you are at, you're given powers accordingly, or technology or things like that. This is pure speculation, right? By the way, this is not something that he talks about here, but that would make sense to me if you would say, like, why are these different people complicit? That would be my guess. Okay, now we talk about free will. This is our protection. This is our saving grace. I feel like I've really talked about this so many times from a logical standpoint. I think this makes sense given all the manipulation, that we are quite powerful, that our free will is very important. And he says it right here, the free will protect us.
They accept it. It's like they give their permission in a way, because the free will is always the big element of everything here. If free will in a way protects us from access to us, right? Because it's like we all are given free will. We can say that free will is a little bit like the law of the universe, like karma or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
So nothing can happen to you if you're not allowing it somehow. And, you have to give your permission one way or another. And sometimes the permission is hijacked a little bit. So it's maybe dreams can be hacked, like they can appear in dreams in different forms. Sometimes it's through rituals. So like people do some rituals, they think the ritual is harmless, but it's actually connected with a contract or karmic contract with some beings. So they try all sorts of trickery to get people to agree, because once there is agreement, they can get more access and they can do whatever they want,
There it is. Agreement, which makes you think, once again, as we sometimes think how elaborate this trap is, how difficult it is to get out. And look, maybe it is. Maybe it is really, really hard, as a lot of people surmise that a very small percentage of us are ever able to escape in a particular lifetime. But then again, maybe it's that simple. It's use your free will. Exercise it. Don't be intimidated. Don't be persuaded. Don't just simply keep saying no. Refusing. And again, I don't know, or I don't have any recollection of exactly how powerful these manipulation tactics might be, but Maybe it's just that simple. And then if we're really, really firm in our will or desire to constantly refuse any and all attempts to get us to sign or agree to anything, then that's it. Then we can't be sucked up and recycled again. And we're going to get to his statements at the end in terms of exactly what he said. I mean, he says effectively this: how to get out of the trap, how to get out of the system. Maybe it's just that simple. Now we get into Calogero Grifasi, different beings, and hooded figures. This is something that David Icke talks about, the hooded figures. Not only David Icke, we hear this in so many NDEs, the hooded figures in the astral where you can't really see their faces. And I think this is done intentionally, or they project, I don't know if this is their true form or this is how they project themselves, probably the latter, but they do that, I think, to project it, some sort of sense of authority, maybe to scare you into agreeing into whatever they're saying or deciding or telling you you have to do. But check this out.
Yes. Yeah.
So Calogero is also like guy who created the techniques that we rely on for hypnosis and regressive hypnosis. Like we do our own stuff, which is different, but it's also based on some of his techniques. And he has, like, he trained hundreds of people doing these regressive hypnosis sessions, and he has teams in different languages and from different countries, and we all kind of notice the same patterns when we do the sessions, right? So we notice that reptilians like Draco, which are more kind of they're more higher level, let's say, and then reptoids, which are more soldier types, they don't have wings. They are often like the most common type that gets involved in humanity, and especially when, soul level hijacking or some kind of implants or whatever. Insectoids seems to be pretty popular as well, like mantis types. And then, like Grace normally working with them as helpers, and very often some astral types, like hooded beings, like these. I'm not sure if you've heard about like the types that I think they're probably archonic or something. So hooded, like you normally don't see their faces. They
like shadow type beings?
Shadow as well, but they normally appear like in a robe, hooded, and you don't see the face.
Very interesting. Again, all of the stuff is obviously if you're into the ET stuff, which I've been for such a long time, all those species and descriptions, that tracks with so many things that I've heard in the past. And then the hooded figures, that's something that we see in NDEs. David Icke talks about this, etc. So anyways, this is all, again, what's important here is he's referencing stuff that has been determined from countless of these regression sessions from Calogero, as well as himself. And he did mention there as well, his technique is a little bit different from Calogero, but it's based on Calogero's regression techniques. So fascinating, but the most fascinating thing is this information is coming from a spectrum of different sessions, a spectrum of different accounts, and it matches up in this way. This is kind of fascinating because he mentions here he had a Kundalini awakening. This is a topic that I've been thinking about. Obviously, we have some people that are for the Kundalini awakening as in saying that it gives you positive powers and sensations and abilities. Other people that are against it saying it's dangerous. I still don't know the truth. I still have more to research, but he does mention that he had his own Kundalini awakening. You judge for yourself. Check this out.
I had my Kundalini awakening probably around 2008 or 9. So I had this, kind of when I became sensitive, I opened my energy flow and I started feeling my auric field, started feeling my chakras a little bit, my spirit guides, things like that from that period.
So judge for yourself. It sounds like that made him more sensitive. I think it made him, I'm guessing, maybe more capable in these regressions or sensing things in general. I don't know, but I just want to throw that in there and you can judge for yourself. Here we go. Is there a way to escape the trap? The big question. What has he learned from all of these regression sessions? Here we go.
And
Do you think there is a way to bypass the archonic soul trap system and make our way out of here?
Yeah, so one thing always, like, if you would ever get yourself in this live review, blah, 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 with any kind of, councils or whoever is going to show up, I would say, like, first of all, you know, you you have the power, like they cannot do anything without your free will. So you can try to request original form of the being. Maybe it's going to work out in this case because like everything is free will. So you can try to request that. You can try to look at the being in the eyes because it's hard to cover the eyes. And the eyes will very often reveal the true nature. Try to hold the being's hand. You can then feel very often like there is a holographic something. That's one option. Like I would say, just straight away, if you're conscious and you left the body, just put intention. I want to go to a place which is safe. Like just put intention like this, because it's astral, so you can teleport instantly, and like straight away, just get out of there, or don't even get involved in discussions or anything, no matter how convincing they might appear. So that's like some of the things. If you already like it looks convincing, whatever, you talk to them or something, you can try to like request their exact form, their real form, because they often can camouflage and look into the eyes, try to touch them, and definitely never agree to any contracts, agreements like that. So if there is any agreement or contract or something written or even like wording, that's definitely a manipulation, definitely, because like no good being is going to give you a contract or any kind of agreement. If you come here with your real soul plan, or even if you want to have a difficult life for some reason, like maybe you want to challenge yourself, grow, then you're not going to be signing any contracts. Probably you might get some agreements with your soul group, like maybe you're going to say, oh, we're going to meet again, to do something again or something, to exchange maybe a situation. Now I'm going to be in the other side or something like that. But it's not going to look like, councils or angels or someone giving you some agreements or whatever.
Okay, so look, he mentioned a lot of ways. We'll talk about them real quick. But I think the big message here is don't agree to anything and just be super skeptical. And so these are all but trust in yourself, trust in your abilities. He said, if you can just think, I want to go to somewhere safe with true intention, you can do that. You have those powers. If you want to ask for their true form, again, your mind, your consciousness, it's that powerful that they will have to show you that. And look, looking into their eyes, touching their hands. I mean, these are all different ways, but the point is, I think what he's describing is all different ways where you're seeking to know the truth and figure out the authentic, what's the true authentic nature of whatever this entity is. And what he is describing, again, where is this coming from? This is coming from all these regressions and that data. He's saying that if you basically request the true nature of what is happening in the situation or the interaction, it will be revealed to you. This all corroborates the idea that we have the power. I mean, this is what I think right now, currently, that this trap is, it's a thin veil. It's not this crazy fortress that is impenetrable and impossible to break out of. I don't know. That's where I'm at right now. That maybe that's rose-colored glasses. Maybe that's wishful thinking. Maybe. But that's the message that I think he's relaying. And it does make sense to me. But that could be naive. And it could be much more intricate than I'm imagining. And much more difficult to get out of. So it is possible. We have to accept that. We have to acknowledge that. But that's kind of where I'm at, though, right now. I'm leaning the other way. I'm leaning that the way that we do have the power and it's right there. And that also tracks with all of the manipulation. Why keep us so confused? Why is this world so confused? Why is there like 50 lies or 50 different versions of what the nature of this is or that is or this is or that is? There's just so much constant stuff being thrown at us, entities getting attached to us, all this crazy. Why all of this? Because maybe it's just that simple, that if you just tap into your own power and your own self-belief, once you can get through and shut everything out, boom, you're out, just like that, right? Maybe it's really that simple. We just have to cut out all of the noise and all of the nonsense, and then it's boom. Quick, easy, simple. Maybe. I think it could be. That's all I got for you guys in this one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of this interview? Would you like me to interview Calogero Grifasi? Would you like me to? I really want to interview Mike Sygula. Both seem very, very interesting, and this is important information. So, and I think the means by which they've gathered this information, that's the real kicker. That's the really important thing. That's all I got. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.